Okay, so a video popped across my YouTube the other day, and I really wanted to weigh in on it because I had some valuable information on the topic. The problem is the creator that the video is from has me blocked on TikTok. So out of respect for that, I'm not going to interact with the video at all. I will put a link to it down in the description for anybody that wants the context where this is coming from. But basically, it's a Messianic Christian responding to a rabbi who says that the direct object in Isaiah 7:14 is very important. It shows that the woman that is being spoken of in the verse, behold, the virgin or the young woman will conceive. It shows that the woman was there with Isaiah and King Ahaz. The Messianic Christian, on the other hand, said it doesn't show that, right? And so this was a back and forth they had. And I had some valuable information because I have encountered this before. It isn't something I studied myself. I just happened to encounter this. And Dr. James Kugel, who is an Orthodox Jew, by the way, he's a Hebrew scholar. He's a professor of Hebrew at Harvard University. And he wrote a book called How to Read the Bible. And in that book, he addresses this specific thing. He addresses the broader issues of Isaiah 7:14. But as to this specific thing with the direct object, he says the exact identity and nature of the certain young woman who gets pregnant in Isaiah's above-cited oracle is somewhat controversial. Was she a real person or merely hypothetical? To begin with, it is unclear whether the first word of Isaiah 7:14 is to be translated as behold or look and the like, or, as he has done, suppose. The latter is indeed sometimes a meaning of the Hebrew chaneh. For example, in Exodus 3:13, suppose I go to the Israelites, and would seem to fit the context better, since in those days one would probably not say, behold, this woman is pregnant and is going to give birth to a son. The next word, ha'alma, translated as a certain young woman, that's how he translates it, might also be rendered simply as, quote, the young woman. Some scholars have in fact suggested the definite article here implies a known individual, perhaps Ahaz's own wife or Isaiah's. The woman in Proverbs 7:19 says, the husband is not in this house, but what she really means is my husband. However, biblical Hebrew sometimes also uses definite articles and even demonstratives in an indefinite sense. In the same way that an English speaker might say, this guy came up to me and started talking French, where this guy really means an undefined person, someone I've never met before. Considering this ambiguity, a certain young woman seems to preserve better the vagueness of the Hebrew. She might be known or might not be. As for young woman, that is how Alma is usually translated nowadays. The word does not necessarily tell us whether she is married or not. So this is an Orthodox Jew, a Hebrew scholar, saying maybe she's not in the room. It's not really clear. He renders it kind of like we say, this guy walks into a bar. Yeah. Now, I would point out that understanding is problematic from Isaiah's perspective. If you read this like I do, because in the next chapter, it seems like Isaiah clearly knows who the woman is. But it's not problematic from Ahaz's perspective, because remember, this sign, the woman is not the sign. The virgin is not the sign. The baby isn't even the sign. The sign is what the baby does before he knows how to choose between good and bad, or say mommy and daddy if you go with the next chapter. The sign is what the child does within a year or two. That's the sign for Ahaz, right? So the baby's part of the sign, of course. The woman's part of the sign, of course. But they're not. If you had a virgin, let's say it's virgin. If you had a virgin who gave birth right there in front of Ahaz, the sign's not complete. If that's all that happened, it's, well, okay, I guess I didn't get my sign. So that's important to note. So from the perspective of Ahaz, it is in fact not important if he knows who the woman is or not. So that's what he has to say. Now, when I have problems like this, things that are being disputed, I like to go to the Net Bible, because the Net Bible defends their translation. They give you a ton of notes to explain why they translated, how they translated. So on Isaiah 7:14, here's first how they translate it. Quote, for this reason, The Lord himself will give you a confirming sign. Look, this young woman is about to conceive and will give birth to a son. You, young woman, will name him Emmanuel. That's the way the New English Translation translates it. Now to their notes. Quote, the Hebrew article has been rendered as the demonstrative pronoun this in the translation to bring out its force. It is very likely that Isaiah pointed to a young woman who was present at the scene of the prophet's interview with Ahaz. Isaiah addresses to the house of David, and his use of second plural form suggests other people were present, and his use of the second feminine singular verb form, you will name, later in the verse is best explained if addressed to a woman who is pregnant. That's what the Net Bible says. So we wind up in this weird position where Orthodox Hebrew scholar James Kugel is siding with the Messianic Christian, and the Net Bible, a Christian publication, is siding with the Orthodox rabbi. I think the larger point here that we can get from this, the other side isn't always interpreting something the way they're interpreting it simply because of their religious beliefs, right? But another point that I think is quite relevant is that it is unreasonable to expect somebody of a differing point of view to also offer your point of view as a possible explanation. Now, we expect that from a scholar, right? James Kugel, both of these sources, neither one of them are emphatic. It has to be this way. They always say this is what makes the best sense to us, right? But you cannot expect a person who is theologically motivated, a person who's doing videos to convince people of their religious point of view, to throw your point of view out there either, right? You can't expect a rabbi to say, hey, I think that the young woman is standing there, but, you know, if you're a Christian, you might think that the young woman is 700 years out. You can't expect that. The same way that you can't expect a Christian missionary to knock on your door and say, I'd like to tell you about Jesus the Messiah, but first you need to know that the Jews don't really think he's the Messiah. They're not going to do that, nor should you expect them to. It's unreasonable to think that somebody who is theologically motivated is going to take like a critical scholar's approach to the text. They're not. They're going to read it the way they read it. Now, that reading may not be theologically motivated, as we see here, where the opposite sides wound up siding with each other, right? So it won't always be theologically motivated, but when a person is theologically motivated and making videos, they're probably not going to give your point of view in their video. Just throwing that out there. I'm Steve Perry. This is Biblical Anarchy. Thank you for watching the video. You can leave me a comment down below if you agree or disagree with anything I said. I will put a link to the article where I have the exact quote from Dr. James Kugel's book and from the Net Bible. And if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, share it on social media, subscribe to the channel, whatever you do. Don't just sit there. Do something.